Chapter 1. The Chord That Shouldn't Exist. The city was a bruise against the horizon. Even from miles away, Aeon Marr could taste the iron in its air, a sign of corroded sky rails, rust-fed rain, and the deep hum of machines that had outlived their operators. He walked the cracked expressway alone, his guitar case tapping softly against his back, the weight of it far heavier than its contents would explain. Every 100 steps, he stopped to listen, not to the wind, not to the distant crack of collapsing towers, but to the hidden bed of resonance that threaded through the world. There was again, faint, thin as a spider strand, a note that shouldn't exist. The intervals were wrong, the overtones too clean for a city this dead. Something was playing in there. He reached the first of the old perimeter gates by dusk. The skeletal remains of security drones hung tangled in the chain link, their sensors still twitching uselessly. A black shape detached itself from the shadows and stepped into view. Soloman Rhoke. "You're late," Soloman said, though his tone carried no accusation. His eyes, hidden behind polarized lenses, swept the skyline. "You hear it too?" Aeon nodded. "It's not feedback. Not natural, not machine-born. I think it's a door." Solomon's mouth curled into something between a smirk and a grimace. A neurophonic gate. "Maybe," Aeon said, "or worse." They entered the city without ceremony. The streets were hushed in that strange, suffocating way that only places rich with memory could be, as if every brick was holding its breath, waiting for something to return. The sound grew clearer as they walked. It was coming from the east, pulsing between the old warehouse blocks where the steel frames leaned into one another like dying men. No speaker they'd ever seen could carry tone like this. It didn't just echo down the street. It pressed against the skin, curled in the gut, a vibration felt as much as heard. They found it in a courtyard littered with shattered instruments. Guitars with necks snapped like dry twigs. Drums split down the seam. Keyboards gutted for their circuits. And in the center stood something neither of them could name. It looked like a cross between an altar and an amplifier, built from scavenged relics of every era, lacquerwood worn smooth by touch, copper tubing bent into spirals, transistors embedded like gemstones. The note was coming from it, continuous and unbroken. Aeon stepped closer, but Soloman caught his arm. "Careful," Soloman said. "Some tones. They're alive, and some don't want company." The air around the thing was warmer, heavy with the smell of ozone. Aeon rested his hand on the case, strapped to his back. "I think it's calling to me," he said quietly. "No," Soloman replied, gaze fixed on the strange machine. "It's calling to both of us." Far above them, the clouds parted, revealing a slice of pale moonlight. The note shifted, subtly, almost imperceptibly, but enough to change the feeling in Aeon's chest. The world tilted. The shadows bent. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. Aeon and Soloman exchanged a look. They had both heard of Adlet Amarok, but neither had ever seen him. If the stories were true, the howl meant one thing. The gate wasn't just opening. It was hungry. Chapter 2. The Wolf and the Static. The howl came again, closer this time. It wasn't the clean cry of an animal untouched by ruin. It carried harmonics, layered and shifting like the echoes of a struck chord, a sound deliberately shaped. Adlet Amarok stepped from the far edge of the courtyard, as if he'd been cut from the shadow itself. His pack fanned out behind him, fur bristling, eyes glinting under a broken neon sign that still sputtered above the street. In his hands, the neon axe pulsed faintly, each beat in perfect sync with the note spilling from the altar amp. "You too are late," Adlet said, his voice low and calm. Aeon frowned. "Late for what?" "For the feeding," Adlet replied, nodding toward the machine. "You think it's calling to you. It's not. It's calling for itself. It wants to be fed, and it takes more than strings and skill to do that." Soloman shifted his weight, eyes narrowing. "What do you mean, feeding?" Adlet's wolves moved, restless, paws shuffling against the cracked concrete. They built these things in the last years before the collapse. The Orolith's children. They were meant to bridge worlds, harmonic gates. But the builders didn't account for hunger. Each one draws in sound until it remembers what was tuned to open, and when it opens, something always comes through. The note from the altar amp bent again, its pitch dipping half a step. The shift felt wrong, like the world itself had exhaled in discomfort. Aeon stepped forward. I've opened gates before. Adlet shook his head slowly. Not this one. This one isn't tuned to you. It's tuned to the silent score. Solomon's jaw tightened. Zira Tenbris? Adlet's only answer was the faintest hint of a smile. The temperature in the courtyard dropped. Frost began to form on the shattered guitars around them. The wolves whined low in their throats, ears flattening. The altar amp's note deepened further, picking up a bass resonance that made the ground tremble. A shadow rose in the air above the machine. Not a figure, not exactly, but the impression of one, as if a silhouette had been burned into reality. It moved like smoke, yet held a shape that refused to disperse. Once it finishes tuning, Adlet said quietly, "That thing will be here, and if Zira sent it, we may not have the luxury of closing the gate." Aeon reached behind him, sliding the guitar from its case. The strings hummed before he touched them. Soloman unshouldered his own weaponized instrument, its metal gleam catching the neon axe's glow. Adlet stepped into place, wolves circling in a slow orbit. The shadow above the altar amp stretched taller. A sound like reversed thunder rattled through the air. No one spoke. They only listened, because in the Fretwalker's world, the wrong note at the wrong time could do far worse than kill you. Chapter 3, The Silent Score. The shadow finished taking form. It wasn't a creature in the way flesh and blood things were. It was written. Its body a lattice of glowing notation, shifting bars of music that floated in and out of alignment. Each measure pulsed with impossible time signatures. Every time the symbols shifted, the air snapped and bent, distorting the light around it. Aeon Marr felt the vibration in his jaw, down through his ribs. It was inside him now, a melody without pitch. More an idea of music, something the mind strained to translate into sound. Soloman Rhoke gritted his teeth. That's not an echo, it's sheet music made flesh. Adlet Amarok's wolves had stopped moving. They stood frozen, staring at the thing as if caught between awe and dread. The silent score, Adlet murmured, Zira's masterpiece. A song so pure it cancels everything else. Once it's played in full. There's no more music, Aeon finished. The altar amp began to shake, its cobbled-together frame rattling like it might come apart. The note it had been holding fractured into pieces. High shards, low rumbles, all weaving into the score's glowing body. Soloman dropped his guitar strap over his shoulder, fingers finding position. "We stop it before the last measure," he said. "Cut it off mid-bar." "That's not possible," Adlet said flatly. "You can't interrupt the score once it begins. You can only join it. Play the wrong tone and it will consume you. Fold your sound into its own. Play the right one." He trailed off. Aeon fixed his eyes on Adlet. "And the right one might change the song," Adlet said at last. The score moved. Its measures collapsed inward, forming arms ahead, a towering presence of glowing staves. From somewhere far above, invisible strings pulled at the clouds, drawing them into spirals. Snow began to fall, each flake a perfect 16th note, vanishing when they touched the ground. The altar amp split open with a metallic scream, revealing a coil of spinning magnetic tape. On it, symbols burned themselves into existence, measures written in languages none of them had seen. Aeon stepped forward, raising his guitar. The neon from Adlet's axe and the frost-lace sheen of Solomon's strings caught at his eyes. "This isn't about stopping it," Aeon said, voice steady. "It's about changing the story it tells." The three of them took their positions. Aeon in front, Soloman to his right, Adlet to his left with the wolves forming a living wall. The silent score tilted its head, and in the stillness that followed, the first bar began to play. It was the most beautiful thing Aeon Marr had ever heard, and it wanted the world. Chapter 4, Battle in the Measures. The The first bar of the silent score washed over them like a tidal wave made of light. It didn't crash. It folded, wrapping around their bodies, pressing into their lungs until breath felt optional. Every note carried the weight of an entire symphony compressed into a single heartbeat. Aeon Marr planted his feet and struck a chord, not loud, but sharp enough to cut a sliver from the score's melody. The air sparked where they collided. The fragment fell to the ground and shattered like glass. The score adjusted immediately, its glowing measures twisting into a new key. It was learning. Soloman Rhoke came in hard on the downbeat, his guitar snarling with distortion thick enough to chew through metal. He bent the pitch until it became more feedback than note, aiming it at the score's left flank. Each bend tore lines from the floating notation, but the ripped measures simply rewrote themselves in real time. This thing needs counterpoint. Soloman shouted over the roar. "That's why you don't fight it," Adlet Amarok growled. "You lead it." Adlet stepped forward, neon axe glowing hotter, each strum sending a pulse of looping harmonics through the courtyard. The wolves joined in, howls threading perfectly into his playing. It wasn't chaos. It was intentional, a call and response older than the collapse. For the first time, the silent score's body hesitated. One of its measures froze mid-shift, unable to predict the pattern. Aeon saw the opening. He slid into a minor mode, fingers blurring across the frets, crafting a melody that clashed and danced with Adlet's rhythm. The score tilted its head again, not in mockery this time, but in acknowledgement. The battlefield changed. The ground beneath them dissolved into a floor of floating staves. Each step a new measure. Bar lines rose like pillars. They were inside the music now. Every wrong step threatened to drag them into a falling note. Aeon watched one snowflake-shaped 16th note touch Solomon's boot, and the man's leg nearly vanished into static before he yanked it free. The score struck back, sending a cascade of augmented chords toward them like a hailstorm. Adlet blocked the first wave with a sustained power chord. Soloman carved through the second with a jagged tremolo line, and Aeon dubbed between them both, weaving a counter melody that kept the floor from collapsing entirely. But the score was still pushing them toward its final measure. Adlet's breath came ragged, the glow of a neon axe flickering. Solomon's strings were red-hot, thin smoke rising where his calloused fingers touched steel. And then Aeon heard it, a faint human voice embedded in the score's melody. It was Zira Tenbris, not singing, but speaking, her words tucked between the notes. Play the root beneath the silence, and the gate will change. Aeon locked eyes with the others. They had one chance before the last bar closed. If they hit the right note, the root, the silent score would bend. If not, they'd be swallowed whole. Chapter 5. The Root Beneath Silence. The final measure loomed ahead, like a monolith. Aeon Marr closed his eyes, feeling the weight of every chord that had come before. The silent score was a web of broken melodies, lost harmonics, and twisted time, but beneath it all was a single root note, steady and persistent, hiding in the silence between sound. His fingers found the string that held that root, a hidden frequency buried beneath static. He struck it carefully, and the world seemed to pause. The score shuddered, notes fluttered like frightened birds, the glowing bodies shifting colors, flickering from harsh reds to soft blues. Soloman and Adlet adjusted their harmonies, joining Aeon's root with their own resonances. The last bar of the score began to unravel, measure by measure, fracturing into shards of light. Zira's voice echoed again, this time a whisper, riding the fading melody. The silence is not empty. It's waiting for the song. The altar-amp collapsed into itself, the pulsing note fading to nothing. The wolves howled, not in warning but in triumph. Aeon opened his eyes. Around them, the city's broken symphony began to pulse with new life. Cracks in the sky rails hummed with tone. The faintest chord stretched across the ruins. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the neurophonic gate was closed, at least for now, but the song was far from over. Chapter 6. The Labyrinth of Echoes. The Harmonic Spire pulsed like a living thing, its thousands of taut strings humming in a symphony that no ear had ever fully heard. Aeon, Soloman, and Adlet stepped forward, the black plane beneath them dissolving into a swirling vortex of sound and light. Inside the spire, space stretched and folded. Corridors of vibrating wires twisted endlessly, each string resonating with a different memory, a lost song, a forgotten battle of tone. The air thrummed with histories, ancient riffs, lost melodies, whispered chords, each waiting to be discovered or forgotten again. Soloman reached out, plucking a golden string that sang of old battles in the zone of sonic silence. Adlet's neon axe traced patterns through the air, weaving protective harmonics that kept discordant noise at bay. Aeon's fingers searched for the master string, the single note that could undo the silent score's grip on their world. But the deeper they went, the more the spire tested them. Phantom echoes of past Fretwalkers rose, some allies, some warnings, each challenged a puzzle of rhythm and tone. The true test awaited at the core, to find the master string and play it perfectly, restoring balance before the silent score could reclaim its dominion. The journey into the labyrinth had begun, and with every step, the line between sound and silence, life and memory, blurred further. Chapter 7. The Master String. The air inside the Harmonic Spire grew denser, alive with the weight of 1,000 songs unplayed. Aeon Marr moved carefully through the labyrinthine corridors, his fingertips grazing vibrating strings that whispered forgotten melodies. Soloman Rhoke's voice echoed softly as he plucked a low, mournful chord that stirred memories of battles long past. Adlet Amarok's neon axe glowed brighter, weaving protective harmonics that shielded them from discordant echoes lurking in the shadows. Ahead, a faint blue light pulsed rhythmically, the master string. It hung suspended in a chamber of swirling sound, its vibration steady yet fragile, waiting for the right hands to claim it. Aeon stepped forward, feeling the silence beneath the hum, the root beneath the song. He strummed the string gently. The note blossomed, resonating to the spire, weaving their three harmonies into one. But as the master string sang, the silent score began to pulse in the distance, its final movement imminent. The balance of their world depended on their next choice, to rewrite the song of reality or let silence claim everything. Chapter 8. The Final Movement. The silent score surged forward, its glowing measures converging into a crescendo that shook the very fabric of the Harmonic Spire. The three Fretwalkers tightened their grips, their instruments becoming extensions of their wills. Aeon struck a soaring lead, weaving light through shadow. Solomon's distortion carved paths through the chaos, raw and relentless. Adlet's neon axe howled like a wolf, anchoring the assault with primal force. The score fought back, ripping chords and dissonant waves aimed to unravel their unity. But with every clash, their harmonies grew stronger, twisting and folding the score's melody into something new, something alive. Then at the peak of the battle, a silence fell, a single perfect note, ringing clear through the chaos. The master string pulsed, resonating with their combined will. The score shattered, scattering into motes of glowing sound that drifted like fireflies, fading into the endless night. Aeon, Soloman, and Adlet stood breathless amid the ruins of the spire. The silence was not emptiness, but a new beginning. "The song is ours now," Aeon whispered, and in the distance, the first true dawn of resonance began to rise. Epilogue. Echoes beyond the silence. The Harmonic Spire had quieted, but its song lingered like a whispered promise. Aeon Marr stood atop the ruined city's highest rooftop, guitar cradled like an old friend. Around him, the air shimmered with fresh harmonics, faint, fragile threads of sound stitching the broken world back together. Soloman Rhoke tuned his instrument nearby, the scars of battle still fresh but his eyes calm. Adlet Amarok's wolves moved silently beneath flickering neon skies, their howls no longer warnings but calls of unity. They had rewritten the silent score, but the song of the world would never truly end. New melodies would rise from ashes, old ones would fade, and through it all, the Fretwalkers would walk the resonant path, guardians of sound, keepers of memory. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the neurophonic gate waited, its chords open, its mystery alive, calling for the next player to step forward. The world was no longer silent. It was singing,